Hey gang, thanks for tuning into the channel. Today, I'm going to quickly go over this new power station from Bluetti, and I'm gonna go ahead and make the prediction like I made on my main YouTube camping channel that this is probably going to be one of Bluetti's most popular, most bought power stations for the weekend camping crowd. This is geared toward a certain set of people, not toward another set of people, and I'll go over that at the very end of the video, who I think this power station is for. But guys, this thing is absolutely incredible, and not waste any of your time. We're just gonna quickly go over some of the features and specs and do some testing on it, and you can decide if you think this is one of the best ones that Bluetti has come out with to date. And there's one feature on this thing that is absolutely astounding that I wish every single power station company would put on their device. So what is this thing, guys? Well, it is the Elite 200 V2. I don't know where the V1 is. It's a very confusing naming convention for this thing because no one knows what the Elite V1 is, but this is the Elite 200 V2. But this is a 2073 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate power station with a 2600 watt inverter. Guys, if you remember 2 years ago, a power station with those specs would be 3 times or 2 times this size. And in fact, my most favorite power station that I use from Bluetti for my little weekend trips is this one AC 180. Look at the size compared. This is just literally a hair bigger than this AC 180. This AC 180 is 1152 watt hours with an 1800 watt inverter. 2600 watt inverter, 2073 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery pack inside on the Elite 200. So size comparison wise, it is amazing that Bluetti was able to get that much squeezed into a package of this size. So AC 180 is probably out. This thing will take 1,000 watts of solar between 12 and 60 volts, 20 amp max. Typically for weekend campers, overnight campers, mainly kind of the stuff that I do, I don't carry 1,000 watts worth of solar panels, so I'm never gonna need to get up to that threshold. But having that range means that I can basically use any solar panel that I have, or even connect a couple of solar panels that I would take with me, and I'm still gonna be within the range of the solar input that this unit is capable of. If you carry around 1,000 watts of solar panels for your weekend trip, good for you, but that's just a lot to take with you. So I think having that big range of solar input is fabulous because, again, you can kind of use whatever solar panels you already have as long as it gets up to 12 volts. Anything below 12 volts, this won't recognize the solar input. So you do have to at least get to that minimum threshold to start charging this Elite 200. Just like every Bluetti, it's got 3 charging speeds that you can configure in the app or not, we'll get into that, but it's got the 800 watt, 1440 watt, or the 1800 turbo fast charge on this thing. So you can technically charge this thing up to 80% in about an hour using that turbo speed, or to 100% in about an hour and a half. So that is a power station this size to get it fully topped off in less than an hour and a half is really, really good. It's got a 15 millisecond UPS. That's not necessarily as fast as you need for like a data center or a giant server rack to really protect that sensitive digital type stuff. But if you're trying to keep a fish tank running, a refrigerator running, a CPAP machine, things that don't require that almost instantaneous switchover, a 15 millisecond UPS is plenty fast for most everything else that you'll need. And the last thing that I want to tell you folks that this machine does before we get into the nitty gritty of this thing is that this unit now has what they call a system switch recovery. And what that means is that if you have the AC inverter on and it goes down to 0% and this battery dies, when you either plug it up to AC or have a solar panel connected to it, when this battery gets back up to 5%, it will cut that AC inverter back on. That is huge because that means you can keep, if you have this thing in an off-grid cabin and you're trying to run security cameras and you're running it off of the AC or DC, it works on DC too. But if you don't have good solar for a day and this battery dies, you really have, on most power stations, you have to physically get back to this power station, turn that AC or DC circuit on for it to kick back on after the battery dies. But there's a little bit of difference. If you have this connected to your grid, to a wall outlet, and it hits 5%, once it dies, it's gonna immediately cut that AC or DC circuit back on. If you don't have it connected to the wall and you're using solar panels to charge it back up, once it hits 5%, it has to stay at 5% or more for 30 minutes. Then it will cut the DC or AC circuit back on. So you don't have to physically get to this power station to turn on that circuit. I wish every single power station would do that. This is the first one that I've had that actually has that feature in it, and it's outstanding if you want to put this in an off-grid cabin, a little shack. You don't have to be there to turn it back on when the battery dies if you have some type of charge going into it. All right, so to hopefully kind of demonstrate the system switch recovery, I completely drained this battery using this 1500 watt space heater. I'm going to go into the 200V2 app. You can see we're at 0%. So this battery station died while the AC inverter was on. I do have the solar panel hooked up. Obviously it's not on, but it is wired to that solar panel. So because I only have two hands, I'm going to grab the solar panel, grab this power station, take it out to my truck, open up the power station, and we'll see if this starts to cut on and if the AC inverter actually turns on after it gets up to 5% and is there for at least 30 minutes. All right, so I've got power station not turned on, sitting on my tailgate. Got my little solar panel here. I'm kind of fighting the sun, but we're late into the year, so it's kind of hard to get it here in my driveway. But I'm going to go ahead and open up this panel. And you can see that the system did turn on. My AC inverter is not cut on yet because we are not at 5%. So I'm going to come back out here and check without touching this if once we get to 5% for at least 30 minutes, if that AC inverter cuts back on. All right, gang, we are sitting now at 6%, and you can see that AC inverter did cut itself back on. We're obviously not pulling any watts, but let's go out and check the actual power station. And this little 200 watt panel isn't doing too bad for mid-November, not really pointing at the sun and getting 150 watts. But you can see here, if that light shows up, my AC inverter did cut back on. I am at 6%. So that is a huge deal, guys. This Elite 200 turned itself back on. It woke itself up with solar after being dead, and it turned the AC inverter back on. That's a huge deal. That's an awesome feature to have on a power station. As I did the capacity testing on it that everyone wants to know, it blew me out of the water, and I've watched quite a few other reviews on this power station and it's blown them out of the water too. But let me tell you what I got. So I hooked up my DC capacity tester. I let it run all the way down to 0%, and pulling around 9 amps from that capacity tester, I got 1,761 watt hours pulled out of the DC circuit, which is about 85%. That standard industry average, 85%, is not good. It's not bad. It's just kind of right there in the middle. Okay, I'll give it a pass. When I did an AC discharge test, I couldn't believe the numbers until I saw a few other videos. So I ran around a 500 watt load hooked up to a watt meter to the front of the system. And when the battery died, I went and checked it, and I was able to get 2,061 watt hours running that little halogen spotlight. That's 98, 99% efficient. That's unheard of. I've never had anything do that with the power station, and I thought I was testing it wrong. And then I watched Hobotech, I watched Jasonoid, I watched a few other YouTube videos, and they all got extremely good AC discharge results. So the AC inverter on this thing is out of this world good. It is the most efficient AC inverter at 2,600 watts. That is a giant inverter to be able to be that efficient. So that puts this power station in a class all by itself, to where, you know, actually using the AC inverter on this thing, you'll get better range than using DC. So it's probably better to hook up your 12 volt cooler through the AC converter directly to this power station, because you're going to get longer runtime using the inverter, which most power stations is the opposite. So the inverter on this thing, guys, is absolutely insane. Again, I've never gotten efficiency scores that high on any power station that I've ever tested. So I don't know what magic Bluetti did on this thing, but if they start putting this inverter in every single power station moving forward, it's bar none, they're probably going to be the best. That was the efficiency testing. Blew my mind. So a little bit closer up, here's some of the ports that you're going to get on the front of this. Up here in the top left is going to be your PV input or your DC input, where it's going to accept, again, either that 12 to 60 volt, 20 amp, up to 1,000 watt max. This is an XT60 port, so pretty much any solar panel you have can be used with this port. You've got your regulated 12 volt, 10 amp cigarette style DC output. You've got two 100 watt USB-C outputs, and you got two USB-A 15 watt outputs, and then you have four AC 20 amp outputs. Note that you do not have any type of RV output on this thing, and I guess Bluetti did that to make this unit as small and compact as possible, because those 30 amp plugs are pretty big and there's really nowhere to put that on here. But if you really do have to connect this to your RV, you can always get a dog bone. Of course, you're only going to get 20 amps, but you can get a dog bone to connect up here to one of these outputs to use to actually hook up your RV if you need to in an emergency. Bluetti is, again, not putting any type of wireless charging up top, which I do miss. I like that on their older power stations. I like being able to put my phone on top, but they haven't put that wireless charging pad up top in the last few power stations that I've gotten. And then to the right side of this unit, you've got your grounding plug. If you want to ground it, then you have your AC input that comes with the AC cord. So of course, like most modern power stations now, you don't have the AC charging brick. It's built into this. So you just need this cord. And then you've got your circuit breaker reset switch right there. No light, which is fine. I don't use lights on power stations. Then you've got your fan and your vents. So let's test out some of these ports right here. So I'm gonna get the DC cut on. I bought two of these things. They're incredible. These are 140 watt, 27,000 milliamp hour power banks that have two 140 watt output or input ports on these things. So we'll be able to test to make sure that both of these 100 watt ports will output 100 watts at the same time. And these are 240 watt power delivery cables, so there shouldn't be an issue there. And you can see both power bricks here are outputting right around 100 watts apiece. So you can use both 100 watt power delivery outputs at the same time, and I'm actually getting 94 watts coming out of both of those. As far as the inverter goes, again, 2600 watts. This heat gun's not even gonna bat an eye. But we'll go ahead and test the load in the sine wave running 1500 watts. 120 volts running 1412 watts. We can check the sine wave. Perfectly clean sine wave. So again, this AC inverter is probably one of the best inverters, but we can try to push this thing even more. Heat gun here, we'll go ahead and plug up. And that's gonna push us to 2845 watts. Make sure we're getting 120 volts off of this load now. Look at that. Perfectly clean sine wave running 2800 watts. And 120 volts. That's outstanding. No overheat warning yet. Still cooking 2820 watts. Let's plug these USBs back in. So two heat guns, two of the USB Type-Cs. Still both pulling 100 watts, 94 watts. Get that up close. But it's getting hot in here now. So guys, I don't want to drag this video out. You know, I think some of these power station videos are getting just way too long in the tooth. There's a million reviews out there on the power stations, and they kind of just do the same thing over and over again. But this Elite 200 is absolutely, again, I think it's going to be their most popular one. And why I say it's not for some people, there's a few drawbacks to this unit, and the main one is it's not expandable. So you cannot hook up any of Bluetti's external battery packs to this unit. This is what it is. You can't get any more capacity on it. 2073 watt hours is more than enough for a couple of nights to get away. It's not going to be your home backup battery station. It's not for that. This is more for to throw in your truck, to throw in your car, take camping with you, because typically this is enough capacity to get you through what you need. And if it's not, you've got up to 1000 watts to hook up to this as via solar to help top it off. You know, of course you can use a DC charger, Bluetti's Charger 1 to charge it up with your vehicle, but this is not for a home backup. And it's not necessarily for RV usage unless you get a dog bone to convert that 20 amp to the 30 amp RV plug, or even 50 amp RV plug if you just want to run a few appliances. If you get that dog bone, you can run your microwave, coffee maker, refrigerator, things like that at one time. You can't run all of them together at the same time because that's going to trip the system. But if you really have to use this with an RV, you can always get one of those dog bones. So it's not necessarily geared toward replacing your RV house battery with this thing. It's not geared toward home backup because you can't expand it. But if you just need a good power station that's very, very small, that'll get you through the weekend, I think this is Bluetti's best option that they have at the moment. I'll put a price in the description below because honestly, I don't know the price of this unit as of right now. They haven't fully released this thing yet, but as always, I do have a unexpiring 5% discount code with Bluetti, so you can always get 5% off if you use the code below for any power station, whether it's this or any other power station that they offer on Amazon. But it only comes with the AC power cord and the XT60 to MC4 cables. It does not come with the DC charging cord, you know, which is fine. You can pick those up for 10 or 15 bucks on Amazon to charge it up to your car. Now, you're only gonna get 100 to maybe 120 watts worth of input out of your car socket before that fuse blows, so that's not meant to actually top this thing up. All of that aside, guys, I think this is, again, one of the best power stations that they've come out with to date for the weekend camper type crowd. So guys, I will leave the link for this down below, again, with the price and the 5% off discount code if you want to check it out. You'll be seeing a lot more of this on my main channel because this is probably what I'm going to be using to carry with me from here until they come up with a better one. So guys, thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you soon.